All right, this is going to be a PowerPoint presentation that I'm just going to talk through. I do want to warn you ahead of time that I'm going to go relatively quickly in reviewing this textbook material because I know that you can stop and rewind it as needed. So Chapter 3, as you can see, is entitled Deep Structure of a Culture, and let's go on. So the key ideas within this, well, this chapter begins with this whole discussion of deep culture and what exactly that means. And deep culture, actually, there are three components to that. And one of those is family, which you'll see in a little bit. So in terms of social institutions, these are many of the entities that are comprise deep culture, and the book addresses how it's both conscious and unconscious. It is the foundation for culture. These three that are listed here, clans, community, and worldview, or rather family, state, religion, same thing. Those are the three aspects of deep culture, and each one of those gets its own chapter in the book. This chapter focuses on family. Here you see why these social institutions, these three categories of family, state slash history, religion slash worldview are so important because they carry important messages, the things that people are willing to die for. They carry messages that last. They convey messages that people feel very strongly about, and they carry messages that deal with your personal identity in terms of who you are. In terms of family, your book discusses obviously the importance of family and argues that it's certainly one of the oldest, most basic units, or rather institutions within the family. Here's the definition of family that's in your book, and obviously you can go to the book for that. Forms of family. Two predominant forms of family are discussed in your textbook, that of nuclear and that of extended. Nuclear is a smaller family, okay? It's typically the American definition of a family, okay, where it's your immediate family, your children, perhaps your parents. Extended family, this is your aunts and uncles, your cousins, your second cousins, and so on and so forth. This is typical of many collectivistic cultures. Another way to look at family is in terms of your family of orientation and your family of procreation. Family of orientation is the one you were born into. It's even as an adult, you are a child to your mom and your dad. Family of procreation is the family that you create with your significant other. In terms of social changes, and certainly there have been a lot of them in terms within the U.S., specifically with the influence of homosexuality and legalized marriage and so on and so forth. So there have been some very significant changes in terms of the view of family within this country. And family comes in many, many different forms, whether it's a child raised by grandparents, whether it's adopted children, whether it's single parent households, and so on and so forth. And so here we have our new family types, and you can read those. Globalization, again, the idea that that we are a very diverse country, and yet we get, in many ways, smaller with the influence of mass media. Nobody is an island unto itself. We're very much influenced by each other. And mass media has influenced family in terms of predominantly technology more than anything else. Migration has a lot to do with people that move because of conflict, of wars, of revolution, because of drought, because of famine, and so they move. Sometimes people move because there's no work in a particular part of the state, and so they move to another county hoping for a job. Different functions of the family. This is something that's discussed obviously in the textbook, not something that I emphasize a great deal, but it's important to understand, and they're listed. They're fairly straightforward. The connection between communication, culture, and family is important to understand. So as it says in the beginning, right, I like this quote, or this part here, that family is both the product of communication and the context in which that communication takes place. And so certainly the family has a great deal of influence about the communication of a child and how they engage in their behavior for the rest of their lives. These are some cultural variations within families, and this one focuses specifically looking at gender and what a male is supposed to be and what a female is supposed to be. It's very interesting. I suggest you sort of pause and take your time and read through these. And here it categorizes or generalizes into Western roles versus more Eastern philosophies. And Western, we're more androgynous. It's more equal between the male and the female. In other countries, it's very male dominant. Individualism and collectivism is huge. It's definitely first taught within the family, and strong differences between the way an individualistic culture raises children and the way a collectivistic culture raises children. For example, simple things like allowing a child to make their own decisions happens much earlier and much more frequently within an individualistic country, not within a collectivistic country. I imagine those of you that are parents let your kids pick out their clothes, except for maybe those really special dinners when they need to look nice for grandma. But in general, they can pick what they want to wear, and as long as it doesn't clash terribly, you let them choose. In many other cultures, that's not an option. I will pick what you will wear. And so it's very, very restrictive. So this clarifies a little bit more the idea of thinking for themselves when they are encouraged to leave the nest. 18, hey, you need to be, start planning your future. Do we have that kind of emphasis? And certainly autonomous. I know that even with having a 17-and-a-half-year-old in the house, it's like, honey, you need to be able to do this on your own. I'm happy to help you, but you're almost 18. You shouldn't need me. And that's very much of an individualistic influence. Okay, well, I always want them to need me, but not in those senses. Collectivism is, here we have the notion of interdependence, and family comes first. And so your duty to family, your duty and your obligation are more important than your own personal desires. Here we have some cultural variations in the way that the elderly are viewed, and this is interesting and in many ways a bit sad, I think, within this country. Social skills are taught in terms of how to properly engage in conversations. Some of you that are parents, or as a child, maybe you remember your parents saying, you need to say excuse me when you want to interrupt me, don't just barge in, or and you establish those kind of rules. In aggression, this is interesting. Certainly with two boys, lots of soccer games and different athletic sporting events. It's very interesting the way that different families vary in the way that they teach aggression to their children and what's acceptable and what's not. And so interesting. And of course, the decision making. And there we go. We've gotten through the entire chapter in about 8 minutes. So that's it. I'll see you later.